Omaha's news leader, chronicling the stories and people making a difference in our community. This is KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle.
We face the same problem that I think literally every private employer faces. Yes. Folks move on if they can get a better salary or better working conditions, so we have to adjust to that.
Later this month, Chief Justice of the Nebraska Supreme Court, Mike Heavican, will deliver his annual State of the Judiciary. I sat down with him this past week to get his take on the judicial system. Good morning, I'm Rob McCartney. Mike Heavican says he is proud of the judges and the staff in Nebraska's judicial system, but he says they need more money, more workers, and that's going to be a significant part of his message.
We want to emphasize especially that we need to compensate our employees well, and we've been doing studies on that for the last couple of years. And of course, everybody knows there has been a great deal of inflation for the last year or so. So we've got to get those salaries to a competitive level so that we can keep our good employees and we can get new good employees. And over the last year and a half, we've implemented hiring bonuses, retention bonuses, referral bonuses, much like the executive branch did. But we have to be competitive, and that is part of the process.
Past couple of years, job vacancies in Nebraska's court system have been around 9 to 9.5%. Is that still hold? Is that where we are now, or are we getting any better?
I think we've had some improvements, particularly in the last 6 months, but we face the same problem that I think literally every private employer faces and every public employer also. Folks move on if they can get a better salary or better working conditions, so we have to adjust to that. And as I said, I think things have gotten a little better, but we still lose people that we would like to keep.
The ABA Journal has a number of articles about diversity and equity. June of 2020, you called for the establishment of a racial equity initiative in Nebraska's judicial system. How has that gone? Do you have any answers or recommendations from that yet?
Well, I don't know if we have any answers or recommendations other than those are issues we always need to work on. Now, we had quite a setback during the pandemic because part of that process was really to assemble people at different times to get input about how the courts are doing, what we can do better, and so forth. So we've just really begun to resume that process. Last summer, we did that in greater Nebraska, out in the Panhandle, because we have a special initiative involving Native Americans. And prior to the pandemic, we had a number of sessions at the reservations in eastern Nebraska and in particular in Omaha, focusing on how the courts can do a better job. Basic message was we want good legal representation. We have a lot of issues in juvenile courts involving abuse and neglect cases and juvenile justice. And we want our judges to know about ICWA. Those are the statutes that involve the tribes in the placement of Native American children out of their homes, and we want good representation.
Juvenile justice, huge issue. You brought that up. Dealing with things like family engagement, positive youth development, fewer detentions. There is a 3-year grant to study the system. What do you expect to find?
What they found and what they're going to emphasize is we can still do a better job of not detaining or to use a word that we don't normally use with juvenile justice, incarcerating young people unless they absolutely have to be. And we need to do a lot better job, particularly with mental health issues related to juvenile justice.
Do you think juvenile justice will ever be, and I don't want, solved is not the right word, do you think we'll ever get ahead of the problem where we can not incarcerate kids? We can get them the treatment they need?
That depends a little bit on the willingness to not just fund. We actually have had very good funding by the legislature. What we don't have is the number of providers that we need, and that the providers are normally private enterprise people, your individual psychiatrists and psychologists and those kinds of folks, and we need more of those providers, and in particular, we need more of those providers west of Salt Creek in Lancaster County. And I don't mean for Lancaster County, I mean for greater Nebraska. There's a great deal of lack of the kinds of services that our judges need and that everybody needs for mental health issues in particular, and substance abuse issues.
You know, Nebraska's had a young adult court since '04. 2020 established its first mental health court. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, how are those courts working? Are they hitting on all cylinders? Are they doing what they need to do?
You know, I came to this job, the Chief Justice job, as a skeptic about problem-solving courts, but I've come to learn that they actually do a very, very good job, most of them, and part of that is we have insisted, the Supreme Court has insisted, and our trial court judges have insisted and supported the idea that we needed very rigorous standards that the courts had to live up to, and that we had to continue to measure whether or not the problem-solving courts have been successful. And I think we do that constant measurement, and I think that we have shown that we have been successful. And if anybody wants to go to a drug court graduation or another problem-solving court graduation, I think that they will come away understanding or thinking, wow, these are really good programs. As you know, they are judge intensive, and they involve a whole lot of supervision, and it pays off at marketing time. You will almost always hear at a problem-solving court graduation people saying, "Thank you, you saved my life, you saved my family," and our recidivism rates are really very, very good.